Hello, my Italian food fanatics. Today, we're going to make the classic Fettuccine Alfredo. But it's not the Fettuccine Alfredo that you know of in America. It's the original Fettuccine Alfredo, the kind that was invented by a guy named Alfredo di Lelio in Rome. He was a restaurateur. You can still go to that restaurant and get the real Fettuccine Alfredo to this day. It's made with fettuccine, butter, and Parmigiano-Reggiano. That's it. And even though it comes from Rome, it's made with the Parmigiano-Reggiano, you would think that it would be made with Pecorino Romano. And who knows? It could have been at that time made with Pecorino Romano. And it could have been made, of course, with Parmigiano-Reggiano. But I have a feeling, I can't prove it, and we don't know for sure, but I have a feeling the original was probably with Pecorino. But Pecorino is a sheep's milk cheese. It's extremely rich and strong in flavor. And unless you're really used to it, you probably are not going to like it in copious amounts. Very, very little bit, yes. So we use the Parmigiano because it coats the pasta very, very nicely. And it has that perfect flavor. Anyway, before we get into the kitchen, please thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell button so you'll be informed of any videos that I release in the future. And now, without any further ado, let's get into the kitchen and make this very, very simple and easy pasta. See you in the kitchen. All right, let's get started. For Fettuccine Alfredo, it's very simple. You need fettuccine. I'm using Di Cecco. I talk about this brand in other videos, my video on pasta. We need Parmigiano-Reggiano cheese, and we need butter. I'm using organic, unsalted butter. Why? Because we have salt here. We're going to add salt into the pasta water, so we don't need salted butter. If you use salted butter, that's fine. There's so little salt in salted butter, it makes no difference. But that's it. It's about as simple as you can get. However, simplicity does not mean that this is simplistic. What you're going to get is something very, very rich and extremely delicious. Imagine a macaroni and cheese in America, but a really well done macaroni and cheese. And that, instead of mixing up all kinds of cheese, can be accomplished with just these three ingredients and a little bit of salt for the pasta water. So with that, I'm going to grate the Parmesan. We'll cut this into smaller pieces and we'll put water on for our pasta. Be right back. All right, here we have our pot on the stove. I've got it under very high heat, and I'm going to add just 4 cups of regular water. When this comes to a boil, we will then add exactly 2 teaspoons of regular table salt. If you've seen any of my other pasta videos, you know that there's a reason for that. You don't need to use copious amounts of water, and you don't need to use anything but regular table salt. Anyway, we'll be back when this comes to a boil. All right, our water has come to a boil, and I've added 2 teaspoons of regular table salt, and now we're ready to cook the fettuccine. It's very simple. In with the fettuccine, and we are going to cook that until it's al dente, just to the point of where it's consumable. And the reason for that is because it's not really going to cook any further than it will in this water. So we'll be back when that's done. All right, while our pasta is cooking, I'll turn the heat on to very low in this saute pan, and I'm going to add our butter. So we have a 1/2 pound of fettuccine, and this is 2.5 tablespoons of butter. Now, in Italy, they come by and they use the whole butter and they toss it with the cheese table side. However, this is not necessary, as it does cause a mess wherever it's done. So I'm going to show you a more convenient way that doesn't change the texture or the flavor an iota. So we're going to melt this. We're not going to cook it any further. We're just going to very, very lightly melt it. And when it's melted, we will turn the heat off. I'll be back. All right, while our pasta cooks, I've taken some of the pasta water, and what we're going to do is we're going to mix it in with the Parmigiano. Now what this does is the molecules of the cheese are going to be coated with the starches from the pasta water, and when we make the sauce, it will stop it from being stringy. Because you don't want this stringiness to it, you want more of a creaminess to it. Kind of the way that they use pasta water, actually exactly the way in which they use pasta water in cacio e pepe. Alright? So it's going to look as if that is a little bit too watery and viscous. However, not viscous, it's going to look as if it's too watery. However, that not to worry. Eventually, the Parmigiano will soak up that water and leave us with a consistency that in the long run will be very, very creamy. And so I'll mix this up and we'll be back. All right, we're about 1 minute away from being al dente. And so what we'll do is take our cheese and pasta water mixture, and we're going to put it into the pan, and we'll get this mixed up really, really well. Now, obviously, as I've maybe stated before, the pasta is going to be cooked to the point of where it is edible, meaning it's not going to be undercooked. We're going to take it to al dente, and then we're going to bring it into the pan. And of course, as I also mentioned, this is a more convenient, less messy, and more theoretically stress-free way of serving fettuccine Alfredo, because you don't have to toss it at the table. What we'll do is this pan, there's no heat on it at all. You can see that I can hold my hand on it, all right? We'll cool the pasta down just a little bit, and so will the sauce. And because of the pasta water, the starch in the pasta water, it will not become stringy. All right? And so we are ready here with our pasta now. And if we need to add any water at all, we'll be using the additional pasta water from the pot. And that's one of the reasons why we cook in such small amounts of water, is because we want to have that very rich starchy water available if we need it. All right, all we have to do is mix this up. And so as you can see, look at the creamy, beautiful consistency here. And now it's time to dish it up. Perfect. All right, my Italian food fanatics, you saw me dish it up in the beginning of the video. Here it is. Oh, and now it's time to see if our Alfredo, or Fettuccine Alfredo, is going to live up to its billing. Now, this is made in the classic way. Butter, fettuccine, Parmigiano-Reggiano, and a little bit of salt for the cooking water. Let's taste. You know what's interesting about this? Number one, it's perfectly seasoned. Number two, I could have put parsley in to make it look nice, but that's not the original way. This is the original way. There was a guy named Alfredo di Lelio, who in the early 1900s, his wife, he's a restaurateur, his wife was pregnant, and so she had trouble keeping her food down, and so he made this for her. It's essentially something that is served to children in Italy, although you can go to the Alfredo restaurant in Rome and get it the way it's supposed to be done, tossed table side for you, with their butter and, of course, Parmigiano. We did a little bit differently in the pan to make it a little bit more convenient for the regular home person to do, rather than a restaurant that specializes in one particular dish. And so anyway, this, you know what it really tastes like? With the great Parmigiano-Reggiano, the butter, and the fettuccine. a little bit of salt. I told you at the beginning of the video, I think, if I remember correctly, it's just a really, really good macaroni and cheese. That's essentially what it tastes like. It tastes like a real macaroni and cheese, something that you would go to a nice restaurant and they would specialize in it, and they'd mix multiple cheeses together to get a particular flavor, and that's what it really tastes like. But in this case, you're using just Parmigiano-Reggiano and some butter, and that's it. That shows you just how wonderful Parmigiano-Reggiano is and how complex of a cheese it is. And I bet you if we made Fettuccine Alfredo with different ages of Parmigiano-Reggiano, you'd get even more nuanced flavor, or a fall or a spring cheese, because there is such a thing. And people with an educated palate to Parmigiano-Reggiano can tell you whether it's a fall or a spring cheese. So let me take another bite here. Now, wow. It's delicious. It's very straightforward. There's nothing complex about it, all right? It's just something that's out and out delicious. Now, in the 80s, in America, Fettuccine Alfredo was very, very popular. However, it was made totally differently. You would take clarified butter, they'd throw a bunch of garlic in there, they'd saute that up, and then they would add cream. The cream would come to a boil, and then they would add Parmesan cheese, and then, of course, the pasta, and mix it all up and serve it with a little bit of chopped parsley on top. Completely the antithesis of what Fettuccine Alfredo was. But that's what happens to food as it comes to America. It changes. And I was working in an Italian restaurant with a chef from Italy. And when I eventually became educated about Italian food, I'm not full, you never learn everything. But when I learned about this, I thought to myself, why is it that this guy from Italy, the executive chef, okay, in a fine dining room from Italy, allowed that to happen in his restaurant? I couldn't believe it. Anyway, so before we go, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and then bing, hit the little bell button. It should be right up here so that you don't miss another video that I put in. I'll let you go. I'll get off my soapbox. Have a wonderful day no matter where you are in the world. Thank you very much for viewing the channel. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye.